TV shows and movies often use the same character archetypes as a pathway to deliver more unique characters now that they have a basis. Archetypes like the leader, the genius, the brute. But often in kids or all ages-based media, one archetype continuously appears. The kid appeal character. The name isn't a trick, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the character designed and written so kids or younger teenagers will find them the most interesting and become drawn to them. And therefore, the company making the show or movie can market it around this character, and sell toys and merchandise with this character's face plastered all over it. There's a million of good examples of these in media. Think about Robin from DC Comics, Baymax from Big Hero 6, the Minions from Despicable Me, Spider-Man in the MCU, BB-8 in the Star Wars sequels, Tails from Sonic, Beast Boy from Teen Titans, Kid Flash and Young Justice, and SpongeBob SquarePants from, well, SpongeBob SquarePants. You get the idea. You can pretty much identify one of these in any piece of media you watch where kids might be a part of the intended audience. And it works well. But what exactly makes them so appealing in the first place? Let's consider the example of one of the biggest kid appeal characters in recent history, that being Bumblebee from the Transformers franchise. And look at how he can be used to understand the kid appeal character. First, character design. Listen, I'm no character design expert, but talking about this without talking about a character's visual design would be pretty pointless. A character can be well written and relate to a kid, but if they don't like the way it looks, they probably won't be drawn to them in the first place. So your typical kid appeal character has a handful of design choices that push through. Usually, they're a bright shade of a color, primary or otherwise. Bumblebee himself is yellow, which sets him apart from most other Transformers casts since usually he's the only major yellow one. This is especially apparent in the movies, since many of the characters are darker colors. Another note is that the kid appeal character is often the smallest when compared to the rest of the cast. Mostly because he's usually the youngest of the group. Bumblebee isn't always the smallest, but usually he's one of the shorter ones. One important thing to have in the design is a handful of iconic traits that distinguishes it from others. The so-called wings he has that come from the car doors, the little horns on the top of his head, and the car front situated at his chest. Depending on who you ask, that might make him cool or maybe even cute, but one thing's for sure, the design's memorable. These design elements might appear on other characters, but when all combined, it's pretty clear that you're looking at Bumblebee. Keeping that famous silhouette is key. In fact, when I flash silhouettes of certain kid appeal characters across the screen, it doesn't take you long to realize who it is. The movie incarnation of Bumblebee, however, has a smaller detail that's pretty important to the character. His mouth, or rather lack thereof. His mouth is covered up by, among other things, a little circular piece, which I want you to remember because it directly ties into the next important part of a kid appeal character, how the character is written. Once you have a design down, it's important to have the character to be appealing in a written sense. You can have a perfect design, but if the character is unlikable, it's over. Kid appeal characters often have the same traits as, well, kids. They're stubborn and headstrong, often very curious about the world around them, and more often than not, pretty impatient. They butt heads with the leader or mentor of the group, but often they have a very special skill that helps them out. For example, in Transformers Animated, Bumblebee is very stubborn. He believes himself to be super cool, and is often impatient and overeager. He sometimes has to be course-corrected by Optimus, and he regularly annoys Ratchet. He has a variety of special abilities. Sometimes he has special rocket boosters that enable him to go faster, and he can transform his hands into stingers that emit electrical sparks. Being a bit of a loudmouth, either annoying or otherwise, is often a trait put into these characters, and animated Bumblebee definitely is. But when we turn back to our movie incarnation, we take notice of something else. Often, kid appeal characters have one trait that they're best known for, and if you know Bumblebee, you know he's known for one thing: the inability to speak. That lack of a defined mouth we talked about earlier is a visual cue for this, and instead he speaks through the use of his radio. This has become a defining trait, with it showing up in most forms of Transformers media after the films, which it debuted and came out. How much it's liked is debatable, but for one thing, it is what Bumblebee is known for. Despite that, movie Bumblebee is actually a very skilled fighter and scout. He does a great job of protecting his human companion, which is usually what Transformers Kid Appeal characters are used for anyways. Which shows that not every Kid Appeal character has to be the same. Now, Kid Appeal characters aren't always created to specifically sell toys, but more often than not, you'll find that to be the case, since they often become the face of the franchise. Bumblebee himself is arguably more popular than Optimus Prime, having boatloads of toys, including multiple toy lines named after him, merchandise, and even getting his own titled movie. When companies have a good Kid Appeal character, you know it, because you'll be seeing them in toy aisles and on backpacks for years to come. Now, not every trait I mentioned is in every Kid Appeal character ever. This is more of a general overview of what I noticed. And it may sound like I'm complaining here, but honestly, Kid Appeal characters have been some of my favorite characters ever, as I was, that kid that they were appealing to at one point. The archetype can even be used in fun and clever ways. A Kid Appeal character isn't inherently bad. In fact, they may often be used to teach lessons, much like the original Ben 10 show did with its main character. I just hope that this video may help you identify this idea a little better in whatever you watch, and if you're creating your own book, comic, or animation, you can develop your own Kid Appeal character. I believe when properly used, Kid Appeal characters can really be some of the best parts of a show. And yeah, even Bumblebee. Hey, it's Flip. Thanks so much for watching a shorter video idea I had. I got it out pretty quickly, but I'm glad I worked on it. Pretty fun to talk about more pop culture concepts than, a specific franchise. If you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up, and tell me your favorite Kid Appeal character in the comments. And subscribe so you don't miss the next video. And once again, thanks so much for watching.